Hey, and what's going on, everyone? Today is September 15th of 2020. This evening, news is breaking of the death of the father of the head of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, former co-founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates Sr., who's actually William Henry Gates II, his son, the more famous Bill Gates, being the third. We'll talk about that in a little bit, passing away at the age of 94. Now, you may have noticed that on the thumbnail for this video, there's a Skull and Bones logo. Now, while Bill Gates Sr. was not publicly a member of Skull and Bones, we are going to look at how his death is bizarrely numerically related to the death and birth of George Herbert Walker Bush, who was a Bonesman, the 41st President of the United States, as well as his son, another Yale graduate, Skull and Bonesman George W. Bush, the 43rd president. We'll also look at how this relates to the numerology of Microsoft and Bill Gates Sr.'s son, the more famous Bill Gates. So let's get right into this. We start with the fact that Bill Gates Sr. was more commonly known as William H. Gates, which sums to 77 in reverse Gematria. We'll take a glance at his reduction value in a little bit. 77 is the gematria of the word philanthropist in reduction, which Bill Gates Sr. is most primarily described to us as. Well, if we measure from the date he died, which was September 14th, to the date of his next birthday, which falls on November 30th, we find he died 77 days before his birthday. Now, another phrase that sums to 77 is secret society, and we'll see how all of these numbers line into this ritual, slotted just perfectly all together for this exit of the stage by the numbers. You know, funny picture of Bill Gates Sr. they use on Wikipedia. It almost looks like a horn is coming through his forehead, doesn't it? It's kind of a strange blemish to have. Anyway. All right. So the secret society that we're talking about here in this video is the Brotherhood of Death, otherwise known as Skull and Bones, which does have its own Wikipedia page. You can verify this club's existence. They're headquartered, of course, at Yale University. Notice how the Brotherhood of Death sums to 95, and this birthday that we were measuring to later this year for Bill Gates Sr. would have been his 95th. This ritual occurs in the year 2020, and the Brotherhood of Death sums to 220 in ordinal. Remember, this is the year of the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, the coronavirus getting its name from an eclipse. The corona, the only part of the sun that's visible during a total solar eclipse. And 2020 is the midway point of these two great American total solar eclipses, which create an X over the United States. However, the Brotherhood of Death is more commonly known as Skull and Bones. In the alphabetic order, Skull and Bones equals 149. Bill Gates Sr. died on the 14th of September, the date written 14/9. In reduction, Skull and Bones has this value of 41. And this brings us to the 41st United States President, George Herbert Walker Bush. Notice how George H.W. Bush died on November 30th of 2018. Bill Gates Sr. was born on November 30th, 1925. Now, the interesting thing about November 30th is that this is the date that I primarily talk about being significant to the total eclipse code. This 1331 eclipse, which never touches a major body of water, occurred on the date November 30th. Which, bizarrely enough, is the only date in Jewish Gematria to sum to 1331. That was the date of the 1331 eclipse. which equals 1331. 1331 made up of 133 and 331. A code I talk about in many videos. I'll go ahead and link this post down in the description below. So anyways, notice how both George Bush Sr. and Bill Gates Sr. dying at the age of 94. Two men, both seniors, over their juniors are very famous. Both with the initials B and G, also, by the way. Now, if you measure from Bill Gates Sr.'s death back to June 12th, which is the birthday of George Bush Sr., you get 94 days. Both men dying at the age of 94. Notice how secret society has this 94 gematria in Jewish. Furthermore, measuring from Papa Bush's death to today, notice how it's the 94th week since he died. So George H.W. Bush, prior to becoming the president, was the 43rd vice president. His son, George Bush Jr., was the 43rd U.S. president. 43 is the ordinal value of Yale, the university that hosts Skull and Bones. George W. Bush was born July 6th, 1946. Measuring from that date to the date or the death of Bill Gates Sr. is exactly 27,100 days. Now in numerology, the 0 here can be dropped. So this represents the number 271. Notice how 271 is the 58th prime number. This is a number that connects Bush, which is 58 in reverse, to William H. Gates, which is 58 in reduction, as part of this secret society riddle. The secret society, 58, in that same reduction cipher. But perhaps the number that Skull and Bones is most known for is the one that appears directly on its emblem, 322. Well, isn't it interesting that Bill Gates Jr., born October 28th, 1955. Well, if you measure from his last birthday to the death of his father, you get exactly 322 days. Skull and Bones with matching Francis Bacon gematria to the ordinal value of William Henry Gates, 201. Recall it was Event 201, the pandemic exercise, held in October last year, right before the coronavirus pandemic went live. And this ritual is further related to Bill Gates, this little guy who wants you to needle up over the next year so we can all get back to normal. That's his plan. Well, not only is it 322 days after his birthday, but notice how it's also 44 days before his next birthday. Of course, 44, a number we associate with the word kill. Kill something to 44. And Bill Gates is currently 64 years old. Notice how kill equals 64 in the reverse alphabetic order. I pointed out how this whole ritual about the coronavirus and the Gates family is related to these two total solar eclipses. Well, if you measure from the first total solar eclipse that passed over the United States, notice how you get 3 years, 3 weeks, and 3 days, a triple 3. But what stands out to me more is actually the most recent total solar eclipse, which occurred over South America. That was 440 days before the death of Bill Gates Sr. And 44, a significant number to the Gates family. Check out the date Microsoft was incorporated. Founded on April 4th, the date written 4/4 back in 1975. If we measure from Microsoft's founding date to the death of Bill Gates Sr., we get exactly 16,600 days. In the standard alphabetic order, this completes our secret society riddle. Secret society equaling 166 in ordinal. Now, I kind of flubbed this when I was talking about the eclipses, but it is related to the total solar eclipse, this second one that's in 2024 numerically. Check out how Gates Sr. died a span of 1,303 days before that eclipse. His son responsible for spearheading the coronavirus pandemic. Coronavirus equals 1303 in Jewish Gematria. There we go. Gates equals 16 in reduction. And if we measure to the first great American total solar eclipse, we get exactly 160 weeks. So that's probably the riddle with those two eclipses, but more clearly and more certainly, a skull and bones riddle. Bill Gates Sr., his death related to George Bush Sr., both at 94 weeks apart, and Gates Sr. dying 94 days after the birthday of Papa Bush. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. That'll do it for this video. Peace, love, God bless. Talk to you next time. See ya.